the two governments declared the issue settled once and for all. So does this mean the major thorn in the two countries' relations has finally been removed? I would say no. In fact, if recent history is anything to go by, it will only be a matter of time before the issue re-emerges on the diplomatic agenda. And this is because the main advocacy organisation of the comfort women victims, known as the Korean Council, has proven itself to be highly adept at influencing and shaping the diplomatic handling of the issue. So in short, any time they deem Tokyo's overtures to the victims to be inadequate, they basically exercise various pressure tactics to ensure that the issue remains contentious between the two governments until it is solved in accordance with its own demands, that nothing less than state compensation will suffice for the victims. And this is because they've deemed this form of compensation as being, key to alleviating the sense of shame that surrounds the victimhood of the comfort women. And also, it's in keeping with international norms about how we resolve historical injustices. And it also serves as a legal admission by the Japanese government to having violated the women's rights. So therefore, it's really important. Yet, despite this, Tokyo has continually ignored these demands, and instead it has opted for two alternative redress formulas. So the first of these was to basically impart funds to the victims from donations of Japanese citizens under the auspices of the Asian Women's Fund in 1995. So the Asian Women's Fund was an initiative of the government in combination with citizens to resolve the issue. It was established in 1995. And so the second redress formula was the more recent deal, the 2015 deal, which basically involved funneling money through the Korean government down to the victims. So the premise of both of these attempts has been the avoidance of setting a legal precedent for the payment of state compensation, which could of course open the floodgates to claims by thousands of other victims of Japanese colonial and war policies. To make sure that the Asian Women's Fund, the first of these attempts, did not resolve the issue, the Korean Council basically lobbied the Seoul government to reject the fund, and this was successful. It changed its stance, the Korean government, from initially welcoming the fund to outright dismissal. And it also basically embarked on a fundraising campaign to top up an existing fund for the women, so that they wouldn't be tempted by the Asian Women's Fund and instead would hold out for a better offer from Japan. So how is it that the Korean Council came to acquire such leverage over its own government? Basically, it derives its authority from, it's a moral authority that comes from, having been the primary advocates of the victims and the caregivers of the victims. So based on this authority, the Korean Council has been able to position itself between the Korean government and the victims. And as such, the Korean government cannot make independent deals with Japan or negotiate independently with Tokyo as a result. After the Asian Women's Fund, there was nothing more forthcoming from Tokyo. So therefore, the Korean Council decided to use the Constitutional Court in Korea and to sue the Foreign Ministry, the Korean Foreign Ministry, its own government. And so as a result of this, in 2011, the Constitutional Court ruled that it was unconstitutional of the Korean government to not press Japan for state compensation. And the result of this was that the Korean government ratcheted up diplomatic pressure on Tokyo to its heretofore most assertive stance, and this sparked a downward spiral in their relations. The downward spiral that this led to is still ongoing, and the two governments haven't recovered from it. So based on these events that I've just described, we can assume that this recent deal between the two governments will not solve anything. It's a new pressure tactic that will get the issue back on the agenda. So really, if the Japanese government is serious about resolving this issue with the Korean government, it needs to direct its diplomatic overtures, not to the Korean government, but to the victims' advocates, the ones who really hold the power and who are key to resolving this issue.